one of the most common things that people ask about, and I get this from um, parents who have child support cases, and I get it from attorneys who are working on child support cases, and that is how to fill out a uniform child support order. The uniform child support order is required on every single case that is going to involve child support. You can not have a uniform child support order if you are going to reserve support, but pretty much outside of that situation, if support is reserved as being really the only reason why you wouldn't have a uniform support order, every time there's a child support case or a case involving minor children, there needs to be a uniform support order. So filling out a uniform support order becomes something that's really, really important that everybody knows how to do, because it's going to be required in every single case. Another thing that can kind of make uniform support orders a little bit tricky is that they get updated every few years. So we want to make sure that everybody has the most current version of the uniform support order that's being used by the State Court Administrative Office. And we want to make sure that everybody knows how to fill out that most current version. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over the most current uniform support order. There were recent updates done in the last year, so we're going to go over that. There was also a new formula manual update in 2021, so everything that we're going to go over today is based on the formula updates that happened in 2021. So that's what we're going to do today. Is we're going to go over in detail how to go through a uniform support order. Really hope that's going to be helpful for everyone, make it a little bit easier for anyone who ever has to fill out a uniform support order. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on going through an actual uniform support order, because I don't want to waste anybody's time on their lunch hour here going over how to make this happen. And your last court order is going to have all of that information. Or if you recently filed a motion, then when you recently filed that motion, it's going to have the judicial circuit and the county on it. Same thing is going to be true for your case number and your judge. So over here, you've got the case number and you've got the judge information. If you're in Genesee County, you're going to be looking at either it being a Judge Beagle case, a Judge Godola case, a Judge Kelly case, or a Judge Christensen case. Those are the 4 family division judges who are normally going to be hearing any matters involving child support. Every once in a while, you might end up in front of Judge Barkey or Judge Pickell. But generally speaking, most cases that are going to involve child support are going to involve those 4 judges. And then, like I said, you'll be able to find your judge and case number on the last paperwork that you had, whether that was a motion or a court order that was recently filled out. Same is going to be true for plaintiff's name, address, and telephone number, and defendant's name, address, and telephone number. Figuring out whether you are if you're a party on a case and you're trying to fill this out, figuring out whether you're the plaintiff or whether you're the defendant. The best place to go find that information is to go to your last paperwork that you had when you were last in court, whether that's a motion or a court order, and that's where you're going to be able to have that information. Whatever address you put here and phone number that you put on here is going to be made your legal address. So it's really important that you're putting down accurate information, because that will be your new legal address and that will get updated at the front of the court. So we want to make sure that you have good information there. If attorneys are involved on the case, then we'll be putting the attorney's information here. And then if there is a source of income, and that information can be put in for plaintiff or defendant here, that's going to become really important when we are enforcing the order. So if we are going to have a support payer, then we're going to want to know the source of income so that we can start taking money out of paycheck to pay for child support, Also, if there's health insurance being ordered for the children, either parent could be ordered to provide health insurance for the child, and we'll need to know the employer for those reasons too, so that we can send out notices to that employer to get the children added to the health insurance. So really important that this information is updated here. We do have sometimes where people don't feel comfortable having this information on a court order. There are other ways of giving this information to the front of the court after your order is entered. So please make sure that we have that information one way or another. All right, now moving down to this next section here, the order is entered. And for most everybody who's going to be watching today, hopefully is parents who have a child support case or attorneys who are helping parents go through a child support case. So that's going to be usually after hearing or on stipulation/consent of the parties. So either you were in front of a judge or a referee and they ordered something and we are filling out a uniform support order to reflect their ruling, or it was on stipulation or consent of the parties, meaning that the parties came to an agreement on their own and they're putting those numbers down in this uniform support order. So it's going to be one of those two situations. After statutory review is not going to be something that parents or attorneys are going to be filling out, because that's something that would happen after the friend of the court was involved. So that's a box that we would check in our office. And that's going to be true for these ones here as well. These are going to be for any time that the friend of the court is doing a review and modification and is making a recommendation for a child support order, or if the case has gone in front of a referee and the referee is doing a recommendation for a child support order. So those boxes don't need to worry about if you are a parent or an attorney who's filling this form out. Right here, there's this one little box before I get jumping into the meat of the uniform support order, and I want to point this one out here. Standard provisions have been modified. So the reason why we would want to check this is if we've deviated from the formula. So deviating from the formula means basically, did you use the child support calculator to come up with the number? If you did, you're not deviating from the formula. If for any reason you use the calculator and you're coming up with a different number that you want to use, then that would be considered a deviation. There's a whole nother form that has to be filled out if you're doing a deviation addendum. Maybe if this video ends up being helpful for folks, I'll be happy to do a separate one on deviation addendum. If that is the case where you want to know a little bit more about deviation addendum, please let me know and I will make sure that we get a video posted one way or another going over how to fill out a deviation addendum. So moving down to what we call the grids. So here's the first section here, this first grid. This is where you're going to indicate who the payer is going to be and who the payee is going to be. Normally, this is going to be the plaintiff and defendant. One person's going to be the payer, one person's going to be the payee. That doesn't always have to be the case. Sometimes there is going to be a payer who might be paying a third party. So sometimes there's a guardianship in place, and a third party might have the children in their care. So you could end up where it might be a third party as the payee. But usually speaking, we're talking about a payer and a payee being the mom and dad in one box or another here. So when you run the child support formula or calculator, there's going to be a person who's going to be indicated to be the payer and another person who's going to be indicated to be the payee. So this is the section that you're going to want to fill that information out. Here's the boxes for putting down the children's names and the number of overnights that the children are spending with the payer. Okay, so the formula does look at overnights and it doesn't just look at amount of time. So this is one of those things that is built into the formula. So you could put down a different number of overnights for each child. So you might have children who are not all exercising the same parenting time with each parent. So you could put all those down. The formula is going to average those numbers if you do that. But it's a good idea to put down what is actually going on with your family. You'll notice that if you're used to looking at an old uniform support order, it used to have the date of birth of the children on here, and that is no longer the case. Don't need to put the date of birth of the children in the uniform support order anymore. Trying to get some of that personally identifying information out of the court file, and so that's one of the things that is not going to be in the court file anymore, date of birth of the children. That was a change that just happened this year. So one of the things I want to talk about when it comes to overnights is that normally you're going to figure out the number of overnights when you're calculating support. It's going to be based on what other past practice between the parents are. So how many overnights have the children been spending with the support payer and payee in past practice? That's the usual way you're going to want to do it, is you're going to want to go by past practice. If the friend of the court is looking at it and we don't necessarily know what past practice is, we're going to go off of whatever the last child support order said. So if the last order said 87 overnights, then we're going to use that amount. That's for when we calculate support. You can certainly be putting in your own number, though. Hopefully the parents have a much better concept of what's going on with overnights than we do. You can also, if you don't have the last support order, then you would go off of the custody and parenting time provisions of the last order to determine what the number of overnights are. All right, so on to effective date of support. So the effective date of support can go as far back as the date that the motion was filed. So when I say the motion was filed, so paperwork had to be filed with the court saying that somebody wanted to address child support, and that means that that's as far back as child support can go. So this is one of the things that we've talked about in some of our other videos about the fact that in Michigan, you cannot have retroactive modification of child support, meaning that you can't go back any further than the date that the motion was brought before the court. So even though a change of circumstances could have happened years ago, if nobody petitioned the court to let the court know that there was a change of circumstances, it can only go back to the date that the motion was filed. That's as far back as it can go. It does not have to go that far back. So if the parties reach an agreement where they say, we want to go, even though the motion was filed in January to address child support, we want this to start going, say, August forward, then you would put that date in here. And so you could put in, 8/1/2021. And so that you would be able to put that date in there as well. Okay, and that's the date that this amount of child support is going to charge. Okay, so there's a lot going on here on this particular grid. So this is where I'm going to probably spend the most amount of time is going over this grid, because this is the support order. So this is the what really drives what's going to happen with the support order. So let's take a look at this grid really quickly. So if there are more than 5 children on the case, 5 or more children, then the information is going to go here. And then 4 children, 3 children, 2 children, and 1 child. So what happens is, say there are parents have 2 children, and one is 16 and one is 14, there will be an amount for it to charge when there's 2 children who are minors, and then there will be an amount put in here for when there's only 1 child that's a minor. So in 2 years, when the 16-year-old is over the age of 18 or has graduated high school, then we're no longer going to charge this amount for 2 children. We're automatically going to switch over to the amount for when there's only 1 child. Okay, so that's why you have all of these different columns, is because it'll make it so that the support can change automatically when each child emancipates and there no longer needs to be child support for that child. Now I'm going to go over here and look at the different categories here. So base support, that is the primary child support order. That's the main child support order. This is the one that's going to really be factoring in both parents' income and the number of overnights that each parent is having with the minor children. So the calculator is going to spit out a number for the base support for the number of children involved, and it will break down how that base support should be this amount for 3 children, 2 children, 1 children, so on and so forth. The premium adjustment is the adjustment that's going to be made to the base support, and this could be a positive or a negative amount. Generally speaking, everything else needs to be a positive amount, but premium adjustment is one of the areas where there can be a negative amount. And so a premium adjustment is basically saying that there's health insurance premiums that are being paid by one of the parents, and they should get credit for those premiums that they're paying out of pocket for health insurance, and that could be either added to the base support amount or subtracted to the from the base support amount. So why would it be subtracted? That often happens when the payer of support is the one who is having the premium health insurance premiums that they're paying, and so that amount is going to be subtracted from their base support amount that they would owe because they're paying out-of-pocket premium adjustment costs. Ordinary medical, that's going to be a set amount in every single support order. Pretty much every single support order is going to have an ordinary medical amount, and that's usually going to be a lot less than whatever the base support amount is. So this ranges from like $15 to $35 a month in ordinary medical. That's going to be the co-payments, deductibles, and uninsured medical expenses that the parent is going to have. So we'll get down in a little bit. I'll show you actually where it is. There's an annual ordinary medical amount and an ordinary medical amount. Those two amounts are tied together. One is the payer's obligation for ordinary medical, which is going to be here in the grid, and the other is the payee's obligation, which is down here. So both parents have an obligation for ordinary medical expenses. The formula presumes that whoever the payee of support is, the person who's going to be receiving support, is going to be the one who's taking the children to most of their medical appointments and is going to be the one having the co-pays. If that's not the case, then there may be a reason to deviate from the guidelines and not have ordinary medical here. Childcare, so if there are actual childcare expenses, childcare costs that somebody has out of pocket, that can be factored in here as well. So if one of the parents is paying actual childcare costs, then that could be factored in here. It's going to look at the percentage of the family income as a whole, and then it's also going to look at the actual childcare costs. Right here is another spot where you could have a negative amount. Again, most of these are going to be a positive, but you could end up with a negative amount here in the benefit credit, and that's when you've got retirement or disability payments that are going for the benefit of the child. And that could end up being a reduction in the support amount. Could be in addition to the support amount. Usually it's going to be a situation where it's going to be a deduction in the child support amount. Take all those numbers together, and then you're going to get your total amount down here. So you're going to just add or subtract all of these together. So you are going to get a sum down here, and you're going to put that in this bottom line. Really important that you make sure that all of this does add up. That's one of the most common problems we have when somebody fills out a uniform support order, is they will be putting in their numbers here, and the final number just does not add up. So you want to make sure that you're going along, and it will automatically fill that out. You see that jumped right there. It will fill that out. So if you're putting the numbers in, it should automatically do that. Now that is important to know that will automatically fill that out for you if you are using the FOC-10, which is the State Court Administrative Office Uniform Support Order. It's available on our website at www.gc4me.com/FOC, and under our forms section, we always have the most up-to-date FOC-10 available on our website. So if you are trying to fill one out and you want it to automatically fill out the information for you, I highly recommend that that's where you go to get your form. If you don't go get it there, the State Court Administrative Office also always has the most up-to-date forms as it relates to child support forms. So it's a good place to go as well. So moving on to uninsured healthcare expenses. When you do the formula calculation and you're using the child support calculator, there is going to be an amount of uninsured healthcare expenses that are going to be paid by the plaintiff and going to be paid by the defendant. So this is going to be really important after the order is entered. This becomes a really big deal in cases where there's braces. That's the big issue, but usually a lot of families will have uninsured healthcare expenses. So what this really means is that there's going to be an annual ordinary medical amount. Right now, this year, the annual ordinary medical amount is $454 per child. So so that's the payee's obligation for annual ordinary medical amount. So, and then remember the payer's obligations up here. So if the payee, the support recipient is paying out-of-pocket costs, once they pay out-of-pocket costs for healthcare over $454, then they can start submitting those expenses to the other parent saying, please pay your portion of it. And the portion is going to be based on this percentage share that's put in here. So this becomes really important. Make sure that's filled out. If it doesn't get paid between the parties, then that's something that can be enforced by the friend of the court. We have our medical team here at our office who will be happy to go through all of your healthcare expenses and make sure that the right amount is being enforced. And we will go through this number here, and we'll go through any receipts of out-of-pocket costs to determine the amount that needs to be paid for uninsured healthcare expenses. Right here, we get into when the obligation is going to end. So support is going to go usually until the child, the end of the last day of the month where the child turns 18. So if their birthday is on the 14th, then it's going to be on the 30th or 31st of that month that their support obligation ends. So that's what happens if nobody checks this box. If somebody wants support to continue after the age of 18, then they have to check this box. If this box is not checked, then support is going to stop at age 18. So here's the box to check if you think your children are, if you want support to continue at past age 18, number one, and number two, that you think that your children or child is going to be attending high school on a full-time basis after turning 18 years of age. Support can only go up to 19 and a half until the child is 19 years and 6 months of age, even if they are attending high school. So if that's going to be the situation, then you're going to want to check that box. And then here you need to specify the child who we're talking about and the date that we think support's going to end. This is going to be something that the new child support calculator is going to help you figure out, because it's going to ask you what grade your child is in, what their age is, and what the date of graduation or when school is going to end in your community. And then it's going to help you get a date for that to end. If you are filling out a support order right now, that hasn't been updated in the calculator just yet, but it will be coming this year. But if you're filling one out right now, the State Court Administrative Office also has a calculator on their website, which we can link up for you as well, which will help you figure out when the support obligation should end at 19 years and 6 months of age, or when the child graduates. Now you're going to get, where we're going to go next here is where a lot of the provisions of the support order are certainly things that you should be aware of, but aren't things that you have to fill out, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to go over some of these other provisions here, but you're not going to have to fill these provisions out. But I do think it's important that you know that these provisions are in your court order. So childcare is one of them here, and this is basically saying that childcare expenses are going to end on August 31st following the child's 12th birthday. So then it's going to stop at that point. Again, remember, we could have multiple children, so you could have a child care amount for when there's 3 children, a child care amount for when there's 2, and a child care amount for when there's 1. So after the 12th, August 31st, following the child's 12th birthday, say there's 3 children and there's child care here, it's going to stop there, and then it's go automatically to the amount for when there's 2 children. If there's ever any changes in childcare expenses, that's something that would require us to do a review and modification of your order. So please let us know if there are childcare expense changes, and then we will take a look at your order and make sure that those changes are reflected in your most recent court order. Pretty much all support orders are going to require one of the parents to maintain healthcare coverage for the children. So this is going to be the box here to say who it's going to be. Is it going to be plaintiff, or is it going to be defendant who's going to be obligated to pay those healthcare expenses and be the one who provides the health insurance for the child? This could be through that parent's employer. It could even be through that parent's new spouse. If they have a spouse who has health insurance coverage, they could be that could be how they meet their obligation to maintain that healthcare coverage. Healthcare coverage is only going to be required up to not to exceed 6% of the plaintiff's or defendant's gross income. The parties can agree to a different amount than that, and this gives you that opportunity right here to agree to a different amount, but without a separate agreement, then it's not going to exceed 6% of the party's gross income. One thing that's really important here is that we don't really want both parents to be ordered to pay. It then tends to confuse employers and confuse insurers. So what we want to do is make sure that one parent is the one who's usually being obligated to provide for that health insurance. All right, so getting into some of the more standard language here, but again, I'm going to go through them so everybody's aware of them. Income withholding is going to take effect immediately, and all payments are going to go through the Michigan State Disbursement Unit. I think we've talked about this before in some of our other videos, but I think it's just worth repeating that income withholding order is automatic, and payments go through the Michigan State Disbursement Unit. They don't actually come through our office. You can certainly make a payment at our office, but most payments go through the Michigan State Disbursement Unit. If a payment is made directly at our office, like a cash payment or something along those lines, all we do is forward that money off to the Michigan State Disbursement Unit for processing. Qualified medical support order. This is just a requirement that this order is a qualified medical support order, and which will mean that the children are going to be covered on health care because of this being a qualified medical support order. One of the things we talked about before is that retroactive modification language, and that we cannot go back any further than the date that the motion was filed, and it can't be modified retroactively. There is some language about surcharges. We don't really do surcharges in the child support program anymore, but there were surcharges in the past, and the statute does permit for it to happen. And unpaid support is a lien by operation of law, meaning that if there's more than 2 months arrears on a case, then you could end up with a lien on a bank account or on a piece of property. Address, employment status, and health insurance. Important information here that everybody keeps the friend of the court updated when they have a change in their name, address, telephone number, or if they've changed their health insurance, or the people who are covered on their health insurance. All very important to make sure to let us know. This is that requirement right here in the court order that everyone is required who has a friend of the court case to keep this information updated with the friend of the court. If there were a situation where a child was placed in foster care, then by operation of law in the state of Michigan, then that money could be assigned to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So if there's, say, child support charging for a child, and that child is placed in foster care and is being funded by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, then that support obligation could be assigned to the state of Michigan during the time that the child is placed in foster care. If the person who has the actual care, support, and maintenance of the child changes over the time that the order is in place, the friend of the court may redirect that support to the person who is providing that actual care, support, and maintenance of that child. Here at the Genesee County front of the court, we are going to require that we have some sort of formal documentation showing that the person who has the actual care and support of the child legally has the right to have actual care and support of that child. And we shall abate support if a child is residing full-time with the payer of support. And that's something that we do in our office. And you would receive notice from our office letting you know that we were going to do that if we found out that the payer of support, as listed in this court order, now has custody of the child. There are fees that are required by Michigan law, and those are referenced here. That's going to be $3.50 per month in fees. If there is an arrearage on a case, that's going to get assessed. So another good reason not to have arrears on a case is you don't want those $3.50 in fees. And here is basically saying that there's going to be that this case could be subject to review every 3 years. If there's public assistance involved, we're going to take a look at the order every 3 years anyways. We can also do it anytime there's a change in circumstances. It doesn't have to be every 3 years if there's been a change in circumstances. So anytime there's a change in circumstances, parents can just let us know and then we would change it at that time. Or every 3 years at the request of a party. So if it's been 3 years since the last time your order was modified, you can just request that we take a look at it. And we don't have to be looking for a change of circumstances. We will just go ahead and take a look at your order and make sure that it's charging correctly. This is the box that you would check if you were going to do a deviation. We talked about deviations earlier on in the video about how you might sometimes agree to an amount that's different than what the child support calculator indicated, and so that's where you would do a deviation. If you do that, you're going to have to attach a deviation addendum. As I said earlier, if that's something you guys are interested in learning more a little bit about, then I will be happy to do a video on deviation addendum and how to fill out a deviation addendum. Other attached separate sheets as needed. So this is just happened to be if you've got anything else that you're trying to address in your support order. Sometimes this might be how much needs to be paid every month when there's arrears. That's a pretty common one. It might also be a place where we can explain if there's anything unusual going on this case. And then this order supersedes all prior child support orders. So that just means that this is the most recent order, and that means it's going to change the last one. This is where the judge is going to sign and date it. After you get a judge's signature and they date it, that's when you're going to want to file that at the clerk's office. If the parties have agreed on it, this is where the plaintiff is going to sign. That's where the defendant's going to sign. Plaintiff's attorney, defendant's attorney. And here's a certificate of mailing. So again, once you filled this whole form out and you've gotten all the provisions right, then you're going to want to get the judge's signature. After that, then you're going to want to serve this with on the other parties. But you're also going to want to make sure that you file this with the clerk's office so that a final copy of this will be in the court file. All right, so that's the how to fill out a uniform child support order. I hope that was helpful. I know some of that is can be a little bit dry, but it is one of the most common questions that we get, and I really wanted to take the time to hopefully answer some of those questions. I know I kind of started digging into the formula. That's its own conversation where we could talk for a long time about the child support formula and how the child support formula factors certain things in. If you are trying to calculate support, you are going to want to use the child support calculator. The My Child Support website has the public calculator available, so anybody in the state of Michigan can go on there and calculate support pursuant to the formula. Of course, if anybody requests us to review their case, we will also do a review and modification where we will use the current child support calculator to determine support. So you get to kind of see the exact same formula that we use in our office is available on the My Child Support website, and it's the public calculator link. So for any questions that you have about how we would achieve those numbers or how we would get those numbers to put them on in the order, that's where you would get those numbers, is from the public calculator on the My Child Support website. All right, well, I'm very happy that we were able to go over some of these kind of complicated form, and hope that we can keep on giving you guys really good information. Please let us know if there's anything else that a topic that would be helpful for you. This is one that was certainly a family request where we've had people asking for us to go over this, so happy to do that. Please let us know if there's other topics that we can answer for you. If you need any help on your friend of the court case, please feel free to reach out to the Genesee County Friend of the Court. As always, we are here to serve.